Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Greg.
And I'm John over here.
We've got John on the monitor in front of you at the moment and it looks a little bit funny. Right up until the last few minutes before the show, we had everything working perfectly and touch wood, things broke, a few seconds before going live. Wirecast, the television, it's not Wirecast that's broken, it's the television that's broken. John is there and he looks a bit funny. When he goes full screen, he looks okay, but for some reason that looks a bit weird there.
I look like some kind of rapper. I'm getting used to it actually real fast. It's all good.
Yeah. So look, we'll start with some of our usual segments, and this time the titling is even going to work for that.
Hey.
There we go. So let's start with news. So John, what's been happening for you?
All right. This week, Morrison Robotics has been out at local government once more with Martin Bass and Tom. And we've been demonstrating to, in the North Hunter region, councils up there, Maitland Shire Council, how to use drones to better help and serve their communities again. We've had some good progress. Just to report, I know those who watched the show before saw that we went out to Albury, where they have an airport right in the middle of town. They're moving forward with their REOC and licensing. We showed them how to survey their tip out there. It's great. So what it means, I suppose, in a positive way for ratepayers is that the councils are looking to save money and do a better job at what they're doing in terms of their community, looking for illegal dumping, just keeping the place tidy and using aerial platforms to do it. And as I said, save money at the time, which should end up with more money in everyone else's pocket. So, we think it's a pretty good community service, and they're pretty excited about it. We had one council say, no, we don't want those drone things anywhere near us, so keep them away. I can't imagine they'd be any good for anything at all. Hello. And, of course, they'll just get left behind here, and eventually, once other councils are showing how much money they're saving using, aircraft for this, they'll sort of have to move on. And I suppose, councillors look at public perception more than anything else. So we'll see how that plays out in the long term. I'll let you know.
Yeah, what's interesting?
Most of the councils are good.
Yeah, what's interesting is seeing some of the councils who have their "you can't fly in our park" persona. Has the stuff that you've been doing, you've been looking specifically at helping them do their job, but what about the community? Have they heard that story?
Yeah, they have. They're slowly coming around to it, but what they can't escape is that they do have a mandate through local, New South Wales anyway, through local government, New South Wales services, to look at what technology, ways of applying technology to save money and do a better job. So we end up on their doorstep. You don't quite, in Queensland, of course, they're very proactive there now. You've got drone parks, dedicated drone parks throughout Brisbane City, which there are 5. And so that's really the future of it. We're going to see a much more social aspect around recreational drone flying, and that's going to be a good thing. I mean, like model flying clubs everywhere, but once you allocate an area, and typically an area where there aren't a lot of unleashed dog activity, so that's much safer, and they just allocate a certain time, when you can, when it's safe. People know what's happening. It all works beautifully, so we'll just watch that progress.
Yeah. Okay, so that's interesting, drones and government. Now, there's another story I'd like to share today about no-fly zone bypasses. Just to share with people, the whole no-fly zone thing is the reason why I originally got into doing a little bit of hacking with the DJI equipment. And recently, there were some people who were having a look at that and saying, hey, what's the reason why we don't publish the no-fly zone bypass? So I'll just share what happened, right? So way back when, there were parameters that you could change on your aircraft and you could bypass the no-fly zones. And then after a time, DJI patched against that and so forth. The newer versions, you can't just change some parameters and, have a simple answer for it. But there are other ways that people have worked out how to do, and hacking and all of that kind of stuff, but that wasn't published. So what happened recently, people were looking at that and saying, well, those who really want to bypass no-fly zones can just roll back their firmware to an earlier version. So the people who had all of these hacks and these patches, I asked the question, why don't we just publish them? Because, you know, if people who want to do bad things can just roll back anyway, we're not really keeping the world a safer or a better place. So I asked the question, why don't we just publish it? And to cut a long story short, they have been published. So that's, I think, a really, really good outcome. So that's now available. If you go to the website that's in the link in the description, dji.retroroms.info, that's got details on how you can bypass the no-fly zones if that's your interest to do that.
I think it's worth mentioning too, Greg, in terms of modifying the software. Once you do that, there are some other exciting elements to the aircraft performance that you can modify. So even if you're not interested in no-fly zones and you'd like to crank the speed up, you'd like to look at other ways of unlocking various performance category parts of your aircraft, then you can do that as well. Disclaimer there, you know, buyer beware. It needs to be handled carefully. But we've one of the guys that flies here, one of our most experienced pilots at Morrison Aerobotics, has a fully unlocked Phantom 4, and we feel that that's actually a safety issue, because if we do have an emergency services job to do where there is a life-saving element to what we're doing, then we feel we should be able to fly the aircraft immediately, and so, you know, if that's available. So, you know, horses for courses. If you don't need it, if you do, it's there. That's great.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, look, that's the end of our news. And just before we move on to the next topic, a couple of things, a little bit of housekeeping. So, number one, we have reached over 100 subscribers, which is really cool.
Yay.
Yay. There's a psychological thing of reaching 100 subscribers. The reason why it's important, we've now got a channel name, right? So youtube.com/c/OzByDrone works. It's an easy way to get to us now. So please do share that link with other people who are interested in drone flying, particularly if they're Aussies, or even if they're not Aussies, they still might like to hear about some of the stuff we talk about. So that's number one. Number two, Twitter. You'll see a few things coming out on Twitter from time to time, and equally on Facebook. Moving on, there's one more thing that I do want to briefly share before we go on today. There's a little bit of a competition. Those who watch Ken's program will know that he has the famous spanner in the channel for the moderators and so forth. So to make it interesting today, I said, well, why don't we ask for the best and most interesting question in the chat room today? And that person, whoever that is, will be getting a spanner later on today. So let's have some really good questions today. Anyway, let's move on. So our first topic, as I change windows very, very quickly and go to that. I've got to get better at this.
Here we go, version 2, Yahoo. Are we excited? Are we excited?
Yeah, look, it's a bit of a fanfare about nothing. That's my opinion, but you know, we can have a little chat about this, and certainly I'd be keen to have people in the chat room talk about it as well. So what are the differences that have come about as a result of the Phantom 4 Pro version 2?
I think the first thing to probably note, Greg, is that there's not a massive difference in price. And what's interesting about that is, for those that are watching the release of these things, if we are looking at a Phantom 5 release, we'll see a massive drop, not a massive drop, but a commensurate drop in the Phantom 4 pricing. So what will happen, you know, as we look down the track with this, I think that, you know, it's still well priced for this aircraft. Out of all of the lists there, and I know you're going to go through them, but I'll throw my 2 cents while I'm here. The ESC upgrade, to me, you know, is a great one. The rest of it, you know, you can change the propellers and so forth, and but other than that, an actual technical improvement in the aircraft, like we saw between the Phantom 3 and 4, which was massive, in sense of dual IMUs and so forth, much better stability. hardware and so forth. But the ESCs is a little march forward, and I think that's actually is going to be an improvement to the airplane.
Yeah. So just to explain to people what the ESCs are that's different, they've got a sinusoidal waveform. So putting it in simple terms, the old ESCs have on and off going in different polarities to different parts of the device. And using a sinusoidal waveform, instead of having ons and off, it's got a graduated waveform that's going to the device. So just pretend you've only got 3 positions for your stepper motor, which in some cases could be correct, but just imagine 3 positions, and with that, it's kind of jolting from position 1 to position 2 to position 3 and so on and so on. But using the sinusoidal waveform, instead of having that jolting behavior, it's a more smooth, graduated move as the motor spins. So that's the main difference there.
And to clarify, that is, do we know if that's a software upgrade only in the ESC?
No, well, good question.
We don't know that, do we?
We don't know, but let's assume that what they did with the Mavic, it was a hardware upgrade, and I don't believe that feature was software upgradable, from what I understood.
Yeah, sure. So we certainly know that by a software in ESC is very, very important part of the way an ESC works, or I would say the full word, electronic speed controller. And to be clear here, the reason these aircraft do fly so well is that we are able to make very, very fine adjustments between the power going to the engine. So obviously the most minute changes in an electronic speed of the motor is able to balance it and smooth it. So it's at the heart of the way the airplane flies. So, but they are reliant on good, robust software to do what they do. And I'm thinking a sine wave. It's possible to do a upgrade with software with the way the ESC reads that and processes it. But I could be wrong. We just don't know and haven't found out. It's too early.
Yeah. Look, my guess is that it's not going to be software, but that's just my thinking at the moment. Moving on, we've got another feature. We've got OcuSync instead of Lightbridge. Now, you said that ESCs are your favourite feature. For me, it's probably OcuSync, just because I've got DJI goggles and I'd like to be able to use them. That's the reason. The ESC and the new props, realistically, they give you lower noise. And on one place, I couldn't believe it. I saw this on the DJI website somewhere. It said 60% less noise. I don't think that's true.
No, the props are making most of the noise anyway. But this is called the prop change is a scimitar prop, or what we've had them in various propellers for a while, in turbine aircraft and so forth, and where they've tried to reduce noise. Big job reducing your classic Dash 8 aeroplanes noise factor, and you'll see multiple blades. So we may see this prop technology coming in when we've got 4 and 5 bladed propellers on our drones. But look, let's see. I don't know, 60%. That seems unusual.
Yeah, look, it's something I saw and I questioned it at the time. So just to recap, we got sinusoidal escapes, props, OcuSync instead of Lightbridge, and there's one other feature. If you have a look at your existing Phantom 4 Pro, in fact, where's mine? Oh, it's outside. If you have a look at your existing Phantom 4 Pro and the DJI logo on the top of it is silver. When you get a Phantom 4 Pro version 2, they changed it to gold.
Oh dear. I mean, right home. Tell someone straight away. Hey, just before you finish on the OcuSync, I know you're excited about being able to use your goggles with it, but OcuSync is a different transmission technology.
True.
So what we're using there is actually streaming the 5.8 and the 2.4 gigahertz in if you like, a dual system. Yeah. I'm not that it's a DJI patented technology, so there's not a lot out there. But you know what, the jump in the range in the Mavic, anyone who flies a Mavic beside a Phantom 4 Pro will know what I'm talking about. The OcuSync range on the Mavic on such a small aerial platform is amazing. It really is. And so OcuSync gives much better penetration and also much better range for those that have very, very, very good eyesight.
Yeah. Just one thing I thought of before we move off the Phantom 4 Pro. In the last week or so, I got an email from DJI, which was nice of them. They told me that they've got a promotion on at the moment where you can upgrade DJI Care Refresh. So I had an existing DJI Care Refresh that was expiring at the end of this month. And with that email, they said, hey, you can renew it, which I've done. So for $200 Australian, I've got insurance covering that drone, that bird. Just letting people know, if you haven't received that email, you can renew it. If you don't have existing DJI Care Refresh, you can actually go through a process of getting them to have a look at the drone. This month only, according to them, this month only, if your drone is currently healthy, they'll get you to submit a video, even if you've never had that product before, and you can get insurance for your bird.
Okay, look, I'm just going to throw my 2 cents in there as well. I wasn't a big fan of DJI Care Refresh. We're rethinking it at the moment. The cost of insuring the hull insurance on the airplanes for a commercial operator has just gone absolutely nuts. And we think DJI Care Refresh is now a really competitive way of looking after your bird. You don't get third-party liability. I'd love DJI to consider that if they're so careful about where you can fly their airplanes and how they look after them. It would be fantastic to think we could get third-party insurance. I'm just getting on the chat line here too from Chris that there's a Bluetooth connection on the new Phantom, and I didn't see that in the list. Did you catch that one, Greg? I no doubt it's probably right, but I missed it. Did you catch that?
I didn't see it, but if it is there, my thinking is that it'd be a alternative to the cable for programming and whatnot.
Yeah, right. So you could do it with the device. I mean, one of the things that makes sense about Bluetooth connection while we're there is if you've got the dual way of connecting, not only can the Bluetooth talk to the processor and monitor and upgrade, but while you've got the Wi-Fi channel open, of course, you can upgrade everything. And look, they've made a lot of modifications to that, so I wouldn't be surprised. I'll take that. But thanks, Chris. I'm going to go and check that out and just see what it's for. I'll definitely do that.
Yeah, the big benefit there is, of course, and that was a question, Chris. What was your question? About the Bluetooth? Yeah, that was a very good question. Reminder, the best question in chat today, we're going to give you the spanner, the moderator privileges, and we'll have that looked at the end of the day.
Okay, good.
So we're done with DJI, I think, for the day. Let's move on to our next topic, and that is... So our regulars might know. Oh, by the way, just for anyone who wasn't here at the beginning, the picture of John at the moment is a little bit broken. When I get him full screen, it looks okay. So apologies, our TV monitor's a little bit broken there. It's a software problem, but it is what it is.
It probably improves the way I look, actually. I said I feel like the wrapper thing. I got the chain on here. Yeah, it's all good. So, yeah.
Anyway, that aside, wings over Illawarra and the Haas Airshow. So John and I went down last weekend. We did a little bit of live streaming, and we had a great time. I've got... Yeah, look, I haven't been to an airshow before. So this was my first time.
I didn't know that. You didn't say that. Oh, I mean, when you had a mouthful of hot dog, you didn't mention it anyway. But I didn't know it was your first airshow.
Yeah.
Oh man, I remember my first. That's great. Well, welcome. And welcome to air shows.
You were showing and saying, oh, this is a such and such a plane and another one, and all of these names that were coming up, and I had no idea, but I still enjoyed it. And to look back at some of the previous videos that we've shared before, we had a video that was entitled Serious Men's Business, and I think this fits into that category.
Yeah, it definitely does, mate. The more fun you're having, it's directly related to the amount of fossil fuel being consumed at the time. I can prove that on any level. But, you know, the interesting thing, just how about that came out, Wings over Illawarra, great air show, the Haas Museum. Let's give it a bit of a plug here. The Historical Aircraft Restoration Society of Australia has some incredible aircraft, Super Constellation. I mean, we're not going to list them all here. But, of course, this is Wings over Illawarra. We had the Scone aircraft down, the Spitfire, Mustang, Sea Fury, Grumman Avenger, all of the great Warbird stuff was there.
So,
but my mates from AIM actually hit me to it because Jeremy, Hugh, hello out there. I know they watch the program. You guys were sort of invited me along, and Darren as well. We went down, and look, it was made it a great day for when truly serious men's business when you can sit around with your mates and listen to fuel being consumed at such an enormous rate.
Yeah, absolutely. So without further ado, what I'd like to do quickly, we've got a short clip. Can you play that first one for me? We'll just put it on the screen. There we go. Now that's a picture of you standing in front of a plane there, John. Do you want to explain what that was?
Yeah, that's the Twin Beach. So it was lovely to see that aeroplane down there. The Twin Beach 18 was an aircraft I flew when I was barely out of high school. I got a gig in it. I was flying night freight. I flew live chickens, all sorts of things. It was quite a gig. It was a freight aircraft. And we'd throw, 1,000 kilos into it and take it off to Melbourne or Brisbane or Perth. But most of the work was at night. So in 1 year, I did 935 hours of night flying in that airplane and 25 hours in the day.
Yeah.
So, I was a nocturnal creature, but beautiful airplane, radial engines, Pratt & Whitney Wasp radials, 450 horsepower. So together she had 900 horsepower and dragged about 7 hours of fuel into the air, and it was quite an airplane. It used to belong to the King of Samoa. Solomon Islands, I should say. King of Solomon Islands owned the aircraft, and then it was traded hands a few times. It's a 1963 Super H model Beach 18 for those aviation nuts that want to know. But there's a great way to suck fuel for you, I can tell you. 2 radial engines.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got 2 more clips that we'll just share briefly. Let's have a look at the first one.
Yeah, Paul Bennett.
So this is, I'll just turn the audio down a little bit from the video. Paul Bennett flying that plane, and I've done my research, a Wolf Pitts Pro, which is a custom plane that he's put together. There we go.
400 horsepower.
Paul's just going to reposition.
I'll take your word on that.
Down on the deck.
No, normally in that size airplane you'd have 300 horsepower. It's got 400 in it, and it is modified. It's got it's lightened up in every way. He carries just enough fuel to do this routine, and not much extra. I think he even weighs how much smoke generating fluid he's carrying too. But the airplane's got also got a modified prop on it. The prop is really, really heavy, and that makes it interesting sort of dynamics for flight. But what he's able to do when he's doing some of the manoeuvres like Lomshevac and some of the end-over-end manoeuvres, he uses the heavy prop to virtually throw the aeroplane end over end. And of course the motor being that much heavier as well. The aeroplane back from there is still very, very light. You're basically strapping on a pair of wings and sitting on top of 400 horsepower. So it's a very capable, the Wolf Pitts very capable aeroplane, very strong. You won't break it, that's for sure. Not a chance. So it's a great. He is probably Australia's top aerobatic pilot, airshow aerobatic pilot at the moment.
So we'll pause that video there, and I've got one more. So
you really don't want to watch the rest?
Well,
yeah, I know.
We'll be here all day.
I know, sorry. It's really cool, isn't it? Look at that.
Yeah. So the second video, oops, wrong one. That's the same one.
That's all right. I never get tired of watching the airshow stuff.
It was good. So the second video is the Wirraway. Let's just see if we can get that one up.
Oh yeah, there we go. Now, this is an Australian aircraft.
Now, the reason I picked this video, based on your earlier comments about turning fossil fuel into noise, this had some really cool noise.
Yeah, there's your two radials for you. So it's actually a Harvard, called a Harvard, that one, and with that insignia and the Wirraway. I think that's a Wirraway in the background. Not sure. They were modelled virtually on the same. I get them confused sometimes. I know a Wacket was an earlier version.
Yeah, this is a CAC Wirraway and a North American T6 Harvard.
There we go. The two, I've got that right then. So you can see the Wirraways in the front position there, Harvard following behind. Gosh, you look at the tiny variation in the tip shape.
I'll just turn the audio back up again just to...
Yeah.
Oh, we got a helicopter there. Oh.
Beautiful blue sky.
Some great noise there.
Nice shot, mate. That's nice footage as well.
Yeah.
We had the VHF radio with us. It was lovely to hear these guys chat while they were working. And it's always nice to have that if you've got a scanner at an air show. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Very, very nice. So we're away.
So we'll cancel that now. We'll stop that video. The weird thing is I'm pressing the button to go back to John.
There I am.
There he is.
Sort of.
For those who have just joined, we've had some issues with the software today. Apologies for that. But yeah, we've been having a look at the air show from last weekend, and certainly it was a great time. And at this point in time, we're halfway through the show approximately, so let's move on to... So I mentioned at the top of the show, we wanted to get some questions in and some discussion happening in the chat room there. So the best question of the day so far, we've got one really cool question. Who did that come from? About the Bluetooth?
Chris asked about, that was Chris had asked about the Bluetooth. He's online at the moment.
Yep, so Chris...
Asking, we're going to check that out. I didn't see it in the spec, so... we don't think it's possible, but you know, these are the sort of things that DJI might have a listen to. I've got Bluetooth on the Solo, and because you can modify it and add all sorts of ways of connecting it to 4G and wireless and Bluetooth. So I think we're going to see it in the future if it's not already there.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
By the way, Rick Halber, I saw you comment mine too. I assume you're referring to it was your first air show as well. So does that mean you were there? You were there on the day, Rick? We'll see that in a couple of moments.
Yeah. First air show. I must admit, I went to them when I was pretty young, and I was at Tuncurry in the north part of New South Wales, my first air show, and a tiger moth was doing some flower bombing, and I remember it distinctly being quite close. It's a very little country airport with a bit of flower bombing and a few throwing lollies out for kids, and he pranged it onto the runway quite spectacularly while looking down and dropping flower bombs in a trailer, and so I thought, you know, that was all part of the show. I was only a teenager at the time. And I thought, I was standing there with Dad, and I said, Dad, that was pretty spectacular. I didn't know we were going to see it crash. And Dad looked at me and said, well, I don't think that was supposed to happen. But every F show after that, you know, now I'm thankful I don't see them crash. It's not very pleasant at all. But, yeah, I've seen a couple of spills at air shows. And, of course, there's plenty on YouTube that... you know, if you're interested. But air shows do demand very, very thought-out discipline for when you're performing. And I flew a couple of demonstration air shows in various aircraft, and you practice what you're going to fly. You don't make up anything on the day. You submit your routine to CASA and to the air show people, and you fly it exactly as you planned it, and with all of the... and practice, which you do, and then you just basically do it. It becomes an easy thing to do once you've done it plenty of times.
Yeah. Okay, so we don't have any new questions coming into the chat room. By the end of the show, let's move on. So next topic is...
I'm looking forward to this one.
So DJI, a topic we've spoken about a little bit earlier today already. They had some problems with some of their products a little while ago. Specifically, they got banned by the military in the US and in other countries of the world. People had hacked DJI infrastructure and all sorts of other things. We've all heard those stories. Now, to battle that stigma of being, broken into and all that kind of stuff, DJI said, we're going to go and engage a third-party company, and they engaged someone called KEVU, K-E-V-U, and they produced a report for them. So they analysed and said, hey, this is what we think. So I've read the report, I've had a look at the data, and I wanted to briefly comment about it, right? So what KEVU essentially did, they picked up a current version of software on the bird, current version of DJI Go 4, and they analysed it, and they said, what's actually happening here, and is it something that's now secure? Now, the first comment is that's a moment in time. That is right at the time that they did that analysis. I think it's fair to say that previously DJI themselves acknowledged they had security problems. That's not in dispute, right?
No.
So the fact that it did happen is, a fact. Now, the question is, if it did happen, why did it happen? Now, in an industry, in the IT industry, you've got people, process, and technology. People have heard that those kind of things many, many times. But there's a fourth one that I think should be included with those three, and that is data. It's an underlying layer that's got to be linked into everything. And DJI, have they protected their data adequately? Have they got a culture that's going to make sure that they're going to keep their systems safe and secure going forward? Now, looking at this KEVU report, it doesn't talk about culture. It doesn't talk about even data classification of everything that DJI stores. This is security and data 101. You really need to start looking at these things. And unfortunately, the report, in my opinion, does nothing to allay the concerns of various organizations relating to, the products. But let's just quickly have a look at a couple of things. I want to give a couple of real concrete examples, and I've got some video here. The first one is a video taken from my iPhone, and this is to do with data classification and sharing of data. Let's just get that up on the screen. There we go. So on the screen at the moment, you can see that this is inside the DJI Go app, and you can see that S with a little dot next to it is always ticked. You can't get rid of that tick. So what this means, if you want to share to Facebook or Twitter or Messenger, or it doesn't matter what you want to share to, you cannot prevent the app from sharing to DJI, and specifically to SkyPixel. So right now, if someone picks up their drone, they go and record whatever it is they're going to record, and they want to share it to Facebook. You press the Facebook button. You can't turn off sharing to DJI. You can't prevent it to share that with China. So that's a concern to me. I've got another example about data security and privacy. I've got another video as well. So this is in the DJI forum, and if you have a look in the left in between these product things, see those icons there that I'm clicking on? Those icons show which products that person has purchased. So every time you as an individual DJI consumer, you go to DJI, you log on to their website and you say, I want help. And the next thing you know, they've shared, well, this guy's purchased a Phantom 4 Pro and goggles and a Mavic. Let me ask you this, for everyone listening here today, if you were a customer of Best Buy or Kogan or whoever it is in your country, and you went onto their website and you posted to their forum asking a question, you wouldn't expect your purchase history to be shared with the world. I would hope.
Mate, they wouldn't be able to put my Kogan purchase history up. It wouldn't fit on a page. But I think this is serious, Greg. I mean, that is and you can't turn that off, you're saying?
You cannot turn that off. And I've complained and posted about this in the DJI forum previously, but it is just ethically immoral and wrong. It's private data.
Yeah, so, I agree.
Anyway, look, my whole point is the KEVU report. Number one, it was a point in time. Number two, to fix it, you need a change in culture. And as long as DJI continue to do the kind of things that they're doing, they are disrespecting their customers. They're disrespecting me when I post to their forums and they're sharing my purchase history. They're disrespecting me if I want to post to Facebook and it's going to send it off to SkyPixel. I don't want to do that. Oh, hang on. You can't turn that off.
So I have a question, Greg, if I may, to pose this to you, because I know you're all over this IT stuff, whereas I'm sort of lagging behind always. Where you guys, and I'm talking about some of our listeners as well, and you specifically, have pulled apart this software, as is this company, KEVU, has pulled it apart and looked what's there very closely under the hood and raised your concerns. How many other things, I'm talking about AliExpress, Facebook, Twitter, all of these other things that we don't necessarily, what are these guys really doing? And I mean, we've seen Zuckerberg up in front of the in front of the judge and saying, well, we're a really good corporate citizen and blah blah blah. We've done a couple of wrong things. I mean, this has been going on. This is a culture, I don't believe just a DJI culture. I believe it's a culture of the internet. Everyone data mines and sells that data, and that's the mother lode. Look at what's Google doing, what's YouTube doing, how much are they using when we put I'm sorry to draw this out, but when we put a video online on YouTube, are they looking at us on our YouTube and saying, oh, they've got this product, that product, this product, and they're mining data from our images? Now, I know you shake your head, but I don't know that. I don't know that. And look, although we've got this close look at DJI, I question, and I agree with you, there's got to be a cultural change, but I think there's got to be a cultural change across all of these online platforms, if I may say.
Yeah, look,
yes,
I don't disagree with you. And just to share with you, right, so here's what I think. When you use an application, even right now, if I start this software Wirecast, which is again broken and your picture looks awful on the monitor, but I'll keep whinging about that another day. But if I start this software, every time I start it, I've had a look at the connections that go out, and it's doing all sorts of things and connecting to all sorts of things. Now, admittedly, Wirecast needs to talk to YouTube. Okay, got it. Right, so we're broadcasting to YouTube. But you turn the application on, you haven't even opened up a document, and it's already sending that information before you do anything. There needs to be a culture in change in the IT industry. Ozbeach, I just saw your message come up on the screen. I'll come back to that. There needs to be a change in the IT and software industry where people will only send data that is necessary for the function that the user is asking to do. Right? So if they want to use YouTube, then it's reasonable to connect to YouTube. But if I start Wirecast and I'm only recording to disk, I don't want you talking to YouTube. And the same goes with DJI Go.
Okay, yep. So we're getting some good feeds here now about this active discussion. So just come over and what about if we use Litchi? I don't know that answer either. We haven't pulled apart Litchi to the same degree. There's all the other SDK programs, And
let's pause there. Let's pause there. Litchi uses the DJI SDK.
Yeah, that's right. They use the SDK. So that's the way they're connecting with the aircraft. So third-party apps is a good point. When you stream to Facebook, look, it could be argued that it comes back to us a little bit, because put your hand up if you ever read every word of the terms of use policy for the software you're using. Everyone's we just accept. It's like hitting a like button these days. Something comes up, I don't even read the topic. You know, I must admit, I'm trying to think of ways. There must be an app now that you can have that will look at these terms of policy. I think there's an idea for app developer. I want an app that scans a user policy and pulls out somehow the things that I should be concerned about in terms of what I'm sharing. And maybe there's good move for legislation here about being more specific about what sharing goes on. And so, you know, I know the concerns that were there. And look, Greg, a lot of the concerns over DJI sharing were found out because they were loose with their security. Man, Apple, let's not even go there. And of course, Microsoft originally, when the American judicial system was looking at Microsoft and saying, well, we're going to, you know, we want the keys to your 128-bit encryption. And there was a lot going on there that's still not talked about in terms of what was allowed. Microsoft did a deal there because basically an operating system is the keys to the free world, keys to the castle. Yeah. And, you know, so there's a whole lot there that we just don't know. And, you know, we are the drones, really.
Yeah. So, look, I think we'll leave it there. But look, suffice to say, data security, you need to have a culture change. And that's what I said at the beginning. And the KEVU report makes no mention whatsoever of security culture or privacy culture within DJI. And if they looked, they'd probably be afraid of what they saw. I mean, the fact that we've still got my purchase history online, the fact that we've still forcing to share my content with SkyPixel or whatever it's called, and I don't want to do that, you know, it's wrong. So let's move on from that. Now, we've got two topics here, and just based on the time, we'll probably pick one of them. Which one do you want, John? Number 4 or number 5?
Okay, looking at that right now. Number 4, number 5. I think I'll go with 5.
Okay.
It's just because it's going to be more applicable, and we need more time to cover 4. So 3 days ago, CASA released a document which was a 12-month look after they've consulted industry. Very interesting results. Just a brief summary of that is that they were looking at licensing for sub 2 kilo. They're looking at whether that's adequate. They're looking at whether you should be doing some kind of training or questionnaire online before you get a registration. They're looking at e-licensing. They're looking at a lot of different things. So what they did was they asked, first of all, commercial operators, they asked recreational users, and they asked non-flyers what your concerns were about safety and the issues surrounding drones. So download it. Just go to the CASA website. That's Charlie Alpha Sierra Alpha, and look for drone review, and you'll see it. So it's only a couple of days old. It's about 20-odd pages. Just go to the end if you like. You want the summary. And it's summarised an executive summary in the beginning, which is very good as well. Have a look at where it's heading. I think I haven't announced this yet, but I will. I've been asked by CASA to sit on a technical working group for the next 2 years, developing some of these suggestions. So I'm off to Brisbane on the 24th of May, looking forward to sharing a day with 10 other industry people and technical people, and we're going to be looking at just those issues now. So now we've got the review. We can look at what the public thinks, what the operators think, what the commercial operators think, where their feelings are. To give you a real brief one, first of all, over 85% of people feel that some kind of drone registration or e-licensing or some kind of recognition that connects you to the owner is valid and will help the industry move forward in a positive way in terms of safety. And so let me just quickly, some of the situations that come up. If you are flying in a park and you're just a hobbyist, but you've got a lanyard on with a card that's saying that you're a licensed, some sort of license or some kind of recognition that you can show, it actually is in your favour to just have that displayed. So that if someone comes up and they're a bit aggro, what are you doing with that drone? You know, are you filming children? Whatever, usually kind of drone rage that people are writing about these days, and it's getting to be a problem. Having some kind of registration.
It's interesting you mentioned that, right? So if you're out and about and just putting on a fluoro vest or something like that, a high-vis vest, people are going to, even just from that, treat you differently than if you're a guy wearing a black coat, flying a drone.
Absolutely, yeah.
I've already seen that myself. But just as we continue to talk about this, I just encourage people to share their opinions on drone registration in the chat rooms. Again, just a reminder, we're giving away the spanner at the end of the show for the best question of the day. So what do you think about the drone registration?
Well, that's going to be one important element of it. And look, it's going to happen. I can tell you how they do it and what it's going to connect to. I'm going to actually give a little bit of an insight to the things that I'm going to look at with the technical working group. One of them is the way we use SMS verification these days. And what I'd like to do in terms of freeing up more airspace these days, imagine you go to a place where there's a nearby heliport and all of a sudden your drone's restricted or you can't fly, but there is no heliport operations there, or it's not, the NOTAM is out, it's unserviceable, whatever reason, and you want to fly. So what you do is you click on the app and you say, I want to fly here today. This is my number. This is my contact details. Then what happens is you get an SMS verification on your phone that you type in. Now what that does, which I really like in terms of tech, is it's a line of communication. If for some reason there was a problem or you had a flyaway and you had a return phone number, so you had a fault with the airplane where it flew off and you're in that sensitive location, you could instantly go back to your SMS, click the button, and the data that you've just agreed to and the airplane itself and whatever telemetry log could easily be accessed by... Now, this is airplane stuff, guys. If you think that we're crossing privacy laws here, then, you know, we're going to have that discussion separately. If you're having some kind of flyaway or emergency in an aircraft where there are risks to the public or manned aircraft, guess what? We use whatever we can to mitigate that risk. And if there's a way to do it with tech and do it quickly and easily and safely, then I say we've got to move that direction. And if we're going to be licensed anyway and we want access to more airspace, then let's look at the ways like this that it can be done.
Yeah, okay. So what else are we expecting in terms of this report? Are there any other hints and leaks at this point?
Yeah, look, they will handle a little bit about the perception of privacy, which is interesting too, because that hasn't been challenged yet anywhere. And while you're flying in what is essentially Crown airspace, if you like, you are able to photograph. So again, coming down to privacy, it's what you do with the photograph that makes it a privacy issue. So that's more or less something CASA doesn't want to deal with at the moment. They're being pressured to, but it's really not in their charter under air safety. Privacy is not an air safety issue. So we're looking at that. We're going to look at drone training. So what will happen in the future when you want to register? You'll have a short questionnaire and a test that you'll have to pass online, and you'll be given an aviation reference number, which which means that you'll get emails from CASA about some new rule, or if you've actually able to eventually want to fly at night, you'll be able to show that you've been a flyer for 2 years and that you've got a good record, and that they might allow you to have approval to fly at night with a bit of training and so forth. So the door will open gradually, but it has to be measured and it has to be safe. And we talk about the way the UTM is going to work. So UTM stands for unmanned traffic management, and low-level UTMs are being studied by universities all over the world at the moment. So I know I'm going to use a few acronyms here, but this is the way the language works in this tech. An OLS is an overlay at airports where the aircraft just don't go below. So if you put up a crane near an airport, it's not allowed to penetrate the OLS. without a special approval. Otherwise, you can build something under the OLS and get council, but the council monitor the OLS in terms of building development. Now, there's good reason for building inspections and so forth, that when you're flying below the OLS, that they could open up that airspace. We'd be opening up huge tracts of airspace. And so we're going to look at the way you might in the future get low altitude authorization to fly within the OLS areas. And basically, you know, we're going to rely on a lot of future technology, geofencing and so forth, and that's going to have to be very robust too. So we're looking, one of the other things in the report is geofencing, which interesting as an earlier topic today. So the geofencing was split pretty much 50-50. It was actually 47-53 about the effectiveness in geofencing. A lot of people feel it inhibits lawful use. A lot of people feel it's a good safety measure, and it should be there. So there's a bit of fence setting there. Most agree that the technology is not mature. Even CASA agree that the technology is not mature, and it's not adopted by all platforms at the moment. So there's no agreement there in sharing between the manufacturers. Some manufacturers sell their products happily, saying we don't geofence, and you know, come and buy our product instead. We're looking at Unix, you know, those sort of aircraft, the Typhoon and so forth, the Solo, those other aircraft. I think there's room to have an advisory system. I think geofencing works. We're going to see it in the future. We're going to see that kind of restriction, but I'd rather see an advisory approach as well adopted, and when licensing is put in place, that the pilot gets the chance to be lawful. Put it that way. You know, we're given that opportunity to be lawful.
Just out of interest, don't know, it's like the bicycle rego proposals or TV licenses to be reintroduced. That was from Daryl. Look, bicycle licenses, there are people for and against that as well. But look, at the end of the day, licenses, I think, need to happen. That's a given, I think, going forward, especially if you look at the airspace management that John was just talking about a moment ago.
How about this? I like to put a question to our learned chat room, and this is something I've also been digging around. Now, if you want to have a VHF radio, aircraft radio, you have a license for it. It's called an AROC, and you use it. What if the Australian telecommunications, or well, we could do it worldwide. Let's talk to the Australian telecommunications. Decided to separate a wireless band, if you like, a frequency band for remotely piloted aircraft vehicle use. So we're going to move out of the domestic Wi-Fi band, and some of you know that unlock your aircraft for 32 channels and have done that you're using the medical band. So be clear, in Australia anyway, the medical hospitals and so forth, all of their Wi-Fi equipment is licensed into a separate band away from domestic 2.4. So let's move away from that again. Let's say we could have a remotely, and this is what the future is going to be too. We had our own band. Now, if you had to have a license, dare I say, not like a TV license, but a license to use that band, commercial operators would love that, because then you've got, not only have you got clean signal, and you're going to have much more reliable telemetry link on a dedicated band. You're going to be able to get much more range and clear signal, better penetration. There's so many reasons to move out of the domestic and leave the recreational aircraft perhaps in that area, but look at licensing for using another radio spectrum. I like that idea, but I'd love to hear what other people think. I really would.
Yeah, Hugh's just mentioned, great point, John, for those that want to be lawful, in quotes.
Yeah. Look, it's a bug in my side. I mean, I go to great lengths to be lawful, not just looking at airspace, but when I fly, about local conditions, about people's privacy, all of that stuff as a commercial operator. Believe me, we treat very, very seriously, because it's our livelihood. But I know out there, and Hugh is one of these people who flies recreationally, loves flying recreationally, who's also very serious about those things. He respects and wants the same for him, privacy of himself. So you treat others as you want to be treated, of course, but also in terms of safety. DDIFS, don't do anything stupid. It's a pretty good one, and to remember in the aviation industry. It's one that you live by. Common sense plays a big factor, but then again, common sense tells you to be aware of where you're flying. You can't just load up anywhere and go off flying, because it just may not be an appropriate place to fly. Go somewhere else.
Yeah. Just having a look here, I just saw a comment from Ozbeach Andy, just for the record. Where I live, there are about 20 odd heliports that restrict my flying. I'll just comment about one aspect of that. There's a heliport, according to Air Services, at Sutherland Hospital. And I know for a fact that more than 10 years ago, this heliport was turned into a car park. And it was removed. I know that because my sister works in the hospital, and she tells me it happened. I called CASA. They said call Air Services. Air Services said call CASA. And neither the two shall ever meet in the middle to remove that from their databases. So therefore, you look at all of the apps. Can I fly there? It shows that there's a heliport there, and it doesn't prevent you from flying, but it does warn you that it's in a area that you need to be mindful of. So.
Well, what the current regulations around that, Greg, is that if you are aware of a manned aircraft, you're allowed to fly there, as you point out. We had a look, and Mark, one of my more experienced pilots with lots and lots of Westpac rescue helicopter time in his logbook, says that brings up the point about being aware. When they say, are you aware, and you've got to land if you're aware of a manned aircraft operating around you, then you've got to land or not take off. Aware is a pretty big word. So you are aware, even sitting at your desk now, that was a heliport, and whether the car park might be converted back to a heliport if they needed it. Whatever it is, even though there's a helicopter not there, you're aware about where you're flying. And I think that's the big word here. Have a look at where you're flying, not just in terms of airspace and aviation related things. Again, be aware of where you're flying in terms of people, property, the lot. Don't create a hazard. And look, there are lots of great places to fly. I'm watching, a lot of my mates have coastal stuff, and look, it's quite safe to fly coastal with good visual line of sight, not over people, not over swimmers or anything, getting beautiful shots of the coastline, and then again, they're aware about coastal activity as well. So, you can do it right.
Yeah, and again from Ozbeach, down at Cape Jarvis, there's a big heliport landing pad. No aircraft has landed there in 10 years. Yeah.
There you go. We're seeing that. We're seeing that a lot. So, and don't worry, those things are being brought up, and inside the commercial RPAS world, we are negotiating that all the time about this database, and they argue, look, if you're allowed to fly there, but we're going to leave make you aware of that actual opportunity. You virtually got to get right out west of Billy Kickatinalong if you want to have nothing. I mean, obviously, the hospital heliports are going to be there, rarely used if ever, but they're a consideration. I found most hospital heliports are used at night anyway. Yeah. You see the big main ones. Just to clarify, there's a distinction too between hospital heliports that are just what we call VFR, or visual flight rule heliports, and ones that have an instrument approach. So a heliport like John Hunter Hospital and Parramatta Westmead Hospital have IFR approaches for the big IFA helicopters. They are a no-fly zone. They are like an airport. They have an exclusion zone around them of 5.5 kilometres technically. So be aware of that. So most of the heliports are VFR. We're talking about a list in Australia of around 20 over the whole country that have IFR approaches.
Yeah.
And that's listed in the app too. So.
I was just seeing a comment from Daryl. He made a comment, New South Wales have strange names. Billy Kickatinalong? That's a strange
Yeah, we
place.
do. And, well, look, there's a place down the road called Wheeler Barraback that I went to first. And then when I was in Wheelabarra back, I said, "Just a strange place to have a name." And they said to me, "Well, if you hadn't been to Billy Kickatinna long, then you wouldn't know that there are stranger places."
Yeah.
Welcome to Australia.
Welcome to Australia,
Evie.
Yeah. So look, we've got one more quick little segment, which is to share a video. I'll just turn off that titling stuff there and go to here and press some magic button. Oh,
that'll do.
That was the wrong button. How about I press this one instead? So
Bowral Fountain.
Yeah, so a family friend lives out in Bowral, and we went there a little while back. There we go. So this is just showcasing a little bit of Australia to those who may not be watching us from Australia.
The Southern Highlands, we call this, everybody. The Southern Highlands. It's really just south of Sydney, really, and it is elevated. It gets quite cold there, and when I talk about elevators, a couple of thousand feet up. That's all we have here. The highest mountain's only 7,000 feet. Oh, that's nice.
So this is his front yard, and when he moved up there, he wanted to put a fountain in, so he did, and it's absolutely massive. But it was interesting flying here, you know, in the midst of all of these trees going up.
A nice way to do a reveal, though, isn't it? When you have, and I call that a reveal because there's more and more while you're watching the centre of the picture, and while you're keeping the centre of the frame on the fountain itself. Yeah. Everything around it's being revealed. It's a lovely way to do it, rather than zooming in.
And you can see the two cars there. The size of the car is similar to the size of the fountain, so that gives you an idea of the magnitude of how big it actually is.
Nice spot, beautiful.
Yeah.
Another reveal again. You can see the camera panning up.
What I'm actually sharing here is Clive's other passion. There's a golf course at the back.
Yeah, look at that. Now, I could ask the listeners, they're guessing if that was, what aircraft is it, Greg?
That's the Phantom 4 Pro. I don't have that many aircraft.
Okay, so, and are you using an ND filter on it there?
On that occasion, I had no filters. It was just struck out of the box.
I was going to ask our photographers there whether they could see that that's unfiltered. And so, yes, you would. When you're going to do a split like that, a filter on the sky, when you're taking in that much light, does a beautiful job. When you don't want to play in post, of course, does a beautiful job of balancing, getting a much better colour temperature from an ND filter.
Yeah. Look, at the time I was doing that, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with the footage. I was just having some fun, but it's all good.
It's all good. It's lovely, and I've learned a lot from photographers. You know, listening to their and obviously getting out and doing a bit of photography, which I'd never done before I got into this. I was a very slow learner in that area, but it's been great to really learn and get a bit of an eye for it now. And I just sit around watching good videos. That's a way to really learn.
Yeah. Look, we're at the end of our time for the day, so let me just wrap up with a few things. Again, the best question of the day, I think, was definitely on the topic of the Bluetooth. So I'll go back and have a look who that was. I think it was Chris.
That was Chris. Yeah,
I'll spanner you later, Chris. And a reminder about other things, like we want our channel to grow. Please do share to anyone you know who flies a drone or likes looking at some footage from around Australia, our channel. Please do, oops, there we go. That's the YouTube one. I pressed the wrong button. Like and subscribe. Everyone who's watching today, please press the like button. It helps elevate the video so other people can see it. Please do comment. We're on Twitter and we're on Facebook. And if all that isn't enough, We've got snail mail as well for anything you may want to send. And the really last one is for viewer video of the week. I'd love to get people to send in some links. Don't send the actual video files, but send a link to a YouTube upload or some other place where the video is stored. And certainly I'd love to include some of that footage at the end of the show next week. So that's about all we've got time for. Thank you. I'm Greg, and we'll see you
John.
next time.
Bye, everybody. See you later.